everybody, and welcome back to Blighty Day Fiancé. Today, we'll be diving into Happily Ever After Season 8, Episode 17, The Troll Toll. I'm Jack in Los Angeles, and joining me on the couch is Michelle.
Hello, everybody. Before we get started, just a brief bit of housekeeping. If you would like to hear our all killer, no filler, no ads, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/BladyDay. You can support us for free by following us on Instagram at Blady Day. In the past, I've said Blady Day Fiancé. That is incorrect, as it turns out. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/Blady Day Bays. Blady is spelled Blighty. Bays is spelled Baes. I'm pretty sure that's everything, right?
I think that pretty much covers it, Michelle. If we have any further housekeeping, let's dive into it later in the program.
Well, it was really nice being here for what is probably going to be our last Independence Day. Democracy dies this coming November.
You had fun. You ate hot dogs and sauerkraut, and you felt very American on Independence Day.
I did. I really enjoyed it. It was my first Independence Day in probably 10 years or so that I actually got to spend in the motherland. So it was very, very nice.
Makes me a little uncomfortable when you refer to America as the motherland, but you know.
Well, when you're an expat, that's what you do. We hope you all had a nice little break. We took a nice little break last week, but we are back. We do have an upcoming episode of 90 Day UK. It's a crossover episode with DocuSweeties, with Chris and Wah. We had a fantastic time recording with them on Saturday, and we are looking forward to sharing it with you upon its release. Now, that is the end of the housekeeping. Shall we get going? Who do you want to start with?
Oof. Who do I want to start with, or who should we start with? Now, I will say this was a little bit of a flip-flop episode because some of these stories that you might usually think would be on the uglier side were a little more pretty this week. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
Which, with that being said, I don't know that there's another place I can start than Michael and Angela. I'm going to start by saying that, we left them last week. This is picking up from the scene last week where Angela leaves Michael outside in the dark in the car. And I guess they had a sort of like, hey, why don't you knock in about 10 minutes situation? Because we have Angela going into what I call the perpetual 1:30 p.m. on a Tuesday house. That's what the kids look like. They just always look very, very busy, you know?
Yeah, they're very switched on and engaged and active, which is nice. I think that's a lot nicer than, and look, parents, we all do what we need to do for the sake of peace and quiet, but it's really refreshing to see Skyla with the kids, helping them with their homework or whatever, and everybody's kind of gathered around. There's not an iPad in sight. There's nobody kind of buffering or dissociating in a corner somewhere. Although I'm sure there's plenty of that when the cameras aren't on. Angela's granddaughter, Anna,
Yes.
looks exactly like Angela. It's terrifying.
It's spooky. It was beyond spooky. You could call it terrifying. I call it spooky. That look, she has the face of Meemaw. I don't I don't know that you want that. I mean, how old is that child? About 8 or 9?
Yeah, probably.
And she's a cute kid, like, don't get me wrong, but it's that unmistakable shape of the face going down to the chin and up through the nasal cavity, and it just looks like a young Angela at play.
Yeah. She was intense. Skyla had pretty intense energy too in this scene. There's an incredible moment where it's cutting between her and Michael. So Michael comes in, everyone's super excited. He's got his like when Michael smiles, it looks like he's a baby that has gas. Like it's sort of like halfway between a normal smile and like, when the baby's kind of like, it's like, it's hard to explain. It's like a pained smile.
Perfect.
But it's really cute.
Now, wait,
And
I just cutting you off for a second because I feel like you buried the lead a little bit here, which is, you didn't bury it, but I just want to focus for a second on the joy as Michael enters because we do this little game where Angela has Michael knock on the door after she's telling Skyla, I just don't know about the visa. And she's saying she's going to keep trying the visa. And that all leads up to a knock at the door. And then Michael comes in, and I mean the I got emotional. I'll be honest
I did
after
too. I
after
did
this
too.
insane story and 8 years of this, and knowing Michael's relationship with the kids and everybody on the phone, and also even with Skyla, which has been very volatile. To see the love and the adoration to which Michael is able to finally enter this home, that warmed my heart.
Yes. Even if he was entering this home to Skyla cutting an apple by hand with and by that I mean she's holding the apple in one hand and the giant kitchen knife in the other.
Oh, that was like
And she's
a
just sort of
it's like a horror movie knife. It was a
yeah.
slasher film knife.
Yes, exactly. It was intense, but let's all collectively enjoy this warm embrace because I'm sure from from this point on, it's just going to be utter horror. And part of that horror, and I say this as a baby hoarder myself, with hoarding tendencies, Angela's a hoarder.
Did you feel that Angela's bedroom looked like maybe like a 16-year-old girl's bedroom?
I'd go younger than that. I'd go 14 maybe. But I sort of like I kind of get it. Like I think there's an element of like the kids have been sleeping in that room and so they've kind of made it their own, but even underneath the sort of surface level of mess there's just blenders and dehumidifiers
Diaphragms.
and diaphragms.
Now, I do have to ask you, just because you've started on this early portion here with the room, can you tell me what you think the overall odor is in the room?
That's so funny because I was going to ask you exactly the same question.
My answer is we've just gotten some word that it may have smelled like latex and sour cream in there. And I will say, see, and initially I'm immediately going somewhere gross. Producer Dan, I don't know that that smell is sour cream, but it is something similar.
I think it smells like old wet cigarettes
Okay.
because I think she is still smoking in the house.
But she's smoking like Mavericks or something that costs, cheap at the
No,
dollar
she
store.
smokes Marlboro
No,
Reds.
she doesn't. She buys Mavericks and puts them in the Marlboro Red pack.
Okay, fine, fair enough. It still smells damp and wet in there. There's an underlying sort of sticky, sweet smell of Coca Cola because there's tons of empty bottles of Coca Cola under her bed.
Well, you're mischaracter. Yeah, I mean, you're mischaracterizing. It is her water.
It
So
is it is her water. Um, and I think there's probably I'm gonna say she goes old school and powders her undercarriage with the Johnson and Johnson baby powder, even though it causes cervical cancer or whatever it was.
Angela's 50% talc and 50% nicotine.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the smells like.
Well, now this room really, we're really offending our producer here, producer Dan, cousin Dan. Which I'm sorry, but we got to give the people what they need to know here. Now, Michelle, if you're Michael and you enter this room and you've been with Angela, so, you might be accustomed to some
I know the
familiar
baby powder
smells.
smell. I know the wet cigarette smell.
Definitely. He's used to all of that. But Michael, and to Michael's credit, he doesn't really seem to get too affected by this hoarder closet that she lives in, but he does he does have the initial thought of, where am I supposed to put my clothes?
I think he's still going, okay, running water, dishwasher, laundry machine,
Y-
washing machine,
yes, I forgot
electricity that works.
you're bringing up the part where she didn't let Michael have like 5 minutes to kind of take any of this in, and she started listing the appliances and how many appliances. And
Yes.
Michael looks a little overwhelmed
He's
because,
beguiled.
right? Because
Yeah.
what was it? Was his line was something like, "I don't even have a dryer in my home." like.
Yeah. He might not even have a freezer.
Oh, he definitely doesn't have a freezer there,
I
and
mean, I
this.
don't think I'm being a little unfair. I don't think his space is as Spartan as Biniyam's was. Like I do think he probably has running water, but
He has running water. I don't know that he has a freezer, and he definitely doesn't have a dryer, and he definitely doesn't have a dishwasher, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
this was all new to him. Now, did you appreciate Skyla's reaction to him? Because I had asked you when we were watching it, I said, "Do you think he's going to get a hug from Skyla?" And you said, "Absolutely not." And then we saw a little warmth from Skyla.
You know, I think she's reminded of what's really important when she sees how he interacts with the kids.
Well, and it was out of the gate. I mean, the kids are jumping
They
all over
just
Papa
adore
Michael.
him. Yeah. I
And I
mean,
think I think a word that I would throw in there when you were talking about him looking like a baby with gas is, he looks cherubic when he's happy.
yeah, he does. Yeah.
Very welcoming presence. He's a warm guy. I mean, I can't, for whatever's going on and whatever the end of this story turns out to be, I felt happy for Michael in this scene.
I did too. I'm so glad he got there and I have no idea how he carries all of that pain and all of that trauma, but you know, he deserves to be here in the US of A. He has earned it and I'm pleased for him. I wish the road had been slightly easier for him, um, with fewer incidences of domestic uh, violence, but you know, here he is. So
In a perfect world, zero instances of domestic
yeah, that
violence.
would be great. Shall we move on to let's talk about Emily and Kobe. So,
Ay, ay, ay. This fucking story.
well, I'm going to say that at first I thought this whole thing was phony and that Kobe was signaling that by wearing his bull shirt t-shirt. I thought he was just being really subversive and, you know,
Now, you pointed this out to me, and I guess I was so enthralled by the words that were happening, I kind of like wasn't paying attention to the screen. Just to be clear for anyone who didn't catch this or didn't watch it, or didn't see the scene, and Michelle, I'm going to let you take this away. I just want to tell the listeners. So it's literally just a T-shirt. There's a bull on it, and underneath, it's funny. It says "bull shirt," but Michelle did have a great point that it was sort of taking a little bit of the realness away from what Kobe might be saying, and it felt like maybe a little bit of trolling of the audience. The name of the episode is the Troll Toll, and I felt like we were paying the troll toll a little bit, Michelle.
yeah, it did feel that way. Look, I'm never going to say I enjoy this couple. I love Kobe. I think he's a great husband and father. I think he's a lovely man with a beautiful family and friendship group. And look, if I were Emily and her family, I wouldn't so easily dismiss this idea. Basically, what the central argument between them was that he thinks it would be great to live in Cameroon for a year or two with the kids at the ages that they are now or close to. And Emily and her parents are fixated on this idea that they won't be able to appreciate the differences enough. And it's like, what, first of all, what the fuck are you talking about? Before they start school is the perfect time to do something like this. Give them a couple, they're already glued to the headphones and the iPad and everything else. You think that's going to be better when they're 6 and 7? No, it is not.
That's what it felt like. I don't want to say it felt racist. It felt xenophobic because it felt like they were saying, listen, these kids go there now. They're going to get confused and feel very at home there because they haven't learned
Right,
anything else yet.
exactly.
What
Yeah.
we want to do, let's give them a few more years to get fully Americanized until they have absolutely no connection and they feel American. Then they can go to Cameroon and say, like, wow, this is so different. I can't wait to go back to Kansas and live in a
Salina,
basement in a
Kansas.
storm cellar.
Oh, I can't wait to go back to being a basement child. Yeah, that is stupid to me. And I, um,
And this brought up one other thing though, which is, and tell me if I'm getting ahead here, but it was bringing up David and Lisa, Emily's parents, who it's a weird thing. They're friendly. They seem to love Kobe in a way. David maybe a little bit more than Lisa, but there's like a coldness to them, like where they're warm to a degree, but then you can't really get closer than
yeah,
that.
it's Minnesota nice.
Yes.
That's what that is. It's, you know, what is it? I'll invite you over, but don't accept the invitation.
Yes.
It's that
Yes.
kind of thing.
It's all surface level type shit. And I
Yeah.
guess maybe when you're getting deeper into the weeds of all of this, it starts, that Minnesota nice starts flipping a little bit. But I just like what do you, what I guess I just want to ask you, what did you, and we touched on it here, but what do you think the driving force of the I don't want these kids spending any time in Cameroon? Because for the record, Kobe said like a year or two max. He's
Right.
talking about an experience for everybody.
Well, the cynical part of me thinks if you really want a compelling spinoff, then you want to maximize the conflict. And if the kids are comfortable and happy there and enjoying playing with their cousins and not, and maybe feeling more at home there with other Black people,
Mm-hmm.
whereas, they're probably the only Black kids they know in just based on where they are in Kansas. Um, like, why not bring them there when they're miserable? And yeah, that maybe makes for better TV. But I think underneath it all, it's like she's like, I'm a mom and I just want to be really comfortable and eat meatloaf every night and watch The Bachelor and, go meet the other moms at the mommy meetup or whatever. And like, that's just where I'm going to bring my huge giant bag everywhere I go. And yeah, that's not something that she wants to give up. I mean, why why take a once in a lifetime opportunity that can change and enrich your family for the better when you can just go to mommy meetup?
Is it better if you don't want your half African children to not get in touch with their African roots? That's what it felt like.
I think
It's a fear. I picked up on a fear, like if these kids feel too Cameroonian, then maybe they'll want to stay there or
I
something.
think you're going too deep. I don't think her brain even gets that far. I think she's just thinking more,
Are you
she's
telling me
not
I'm
going to be
giving
comfortable. Yeah,
Emily too
you're
much
giving her
credit?
way too much credit. Who's next?
We're done with them. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. You want to? We're doing it fast and sweet today. Now you skipped a couple, but do you want to hold them?
Who, Rob and
Yeah,
Sophie? No, not
I
necessarily.
think
We
we
can
could
go to
do that.
Rob and
Let's do
Sophie.
Rob and
All right.
Sophie. Let's do Rob and Sophie, where this is interesting. So we open with Rob and Sophie, but we open with Sophie today, this week. And Sophie is
Sophie's
matching.
at the club with her friend Kay, and she's just not feeling very nice because she's away from Rob on his birthday, and she's just going to drunk dial him because she hasn't said happy birthday yet, not even all day.
And it is, I think it's now the next day from looking at where Rob is and what he's doing. I think it might be past midnight already.
And Kay, who I'm sorry is a creepy, creepy
Single white
predator.
female.
Yeah, more than that. She's like, I'm just praying to the Lord every night that Rob and Sophie will break up because Sophie, like, that's my girl. That's my bitch. You know, like, she's the other half of my soul. She actually said that.
When we did get,
I would do anything for her. I bought a gun that she doesn't even know about.
has Rob's name on it. Now we did get so we've all been dancing around this topic of is Kay in love with Sophie. We do get flat out from right off of the back of what you were just saying where she says if Rob was out of the picture, it would be just me and Sophie forever. I'd marry that girl. I'm
Mm-hmm.
serious. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want.
Yep.
So that's some confirmation there, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's not the friend you want to be hanging around if you're trying to fix your marriage. Just a suggestion.
It felt a little I didn't pick up on this from Kay until here. It felt like very what's the word? Not sinister. It felt like she was sort of growing up Sophie's leg and like wrapping like a tentacle. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah. So is this like John from John and Sprite kind of energy? Do you think Kay really sees Sophie? Do you think Kay really knows and loves Sophie, or does she see a warm body that she really wants to control and kind of live inside?
I think she sees a malleable warm body that
Ah,
she can do what she wants with. So I would say, in relation to our UK friends on the other franchise, it does feel a bit similar there because tell me you couldn't picture Kay pulling the type of shit that John does with Sprite.
I think she probably already does. I don't think Sophie really knows any other kind of love. But speaking of I'll be your dancer, dancer for money, do what you want me to do. Rob has a stage 5 clinger here, and I don't know how much production tipped her to slobber all over him like this, but isn't this the point, Jack, where like it kind of becomes off-putting?
Oh, 100%. And are you talking about the point when Rob's talking to this boozed up cocktail waitress outside the yeah,
Yes. And
okay,
she's literally hanging off of him.
hanging off of him, head is sideways, and she's kind of got a goofy stupid look like, and she's just looking at him and she's just like, I mean, she's almost like it looks like she's going to say, Rob, whatever you want, I'll suck your dick right here on the street if that would help. And it won't. Rob's turned off. I don't know if you picked up on that at all.
Oh yeah, there was no he's all of this talk about like, oh, I don't want to make the wrong decision. He was never going to make that decision. It's not fun for him.
He did want everybody to know that he can access that dog if he needs
Yeah,
to.
he can access the dog in him if he needs to, which is a fucking chihuahua.
An
Um
angry
an
chihuahua.
angry chihuahua. But like, yeah, this was never going to happen. And ladies, as someone who has been there and been that drunk and been the stage 5 clinger at the end of the night, it's not a good look. Do whatever you can to avoid being this person. If you see, even if she's a complete stranger, help a girl out. women support women. Do you know what I mean? Nobody wants to be this woman. That's why even the cop ends up talking to her. He's like, girl, seriously, you look sad and desperate, and the 4 kids that you have at home are not going to be impressed when they see mommy on TV and she's hanging off this guy who is not interested. So, yeah, don't buy for a second that this was a conflict for Rob in any way.
Yeah,
However,
go ahead.
I have a very strong feeling that his friends stuck around to pick up the leftovers.
Well, we do have Tuan, who is hanging out with Rob, who's sort of, I guess, his buddy. We've seen, which this is interesting because, I had like mixed feelings on Tarai, Rob's buddy here in LA. I think Tarai is 100% a better person than Tuan. Tuan was pushing Rob to go like, fuck this, not stroke waitress, whatever we want to call her there. There was just a sort of like, I don't know, it felt like he hadn't seen Rob in a few years because it was like, man, I can't believe you're not getting up on that. And it was like, really, Twan? Like, I can.
Yeah. I think Tuan is okay, I'm not going to say that. Um
Twan's an interest. No, no. I mean, it's not. Look, it's just our first quick taste of Twan. He's in Kansas City, and he's just. I think he's like reaching back into that like 20-something Rob who might have been more into that, but 30-something Rob is trying to figure out his relationship, as hard as that might be for his buddies to realize.
I know, and y'all, it's not lost on me that we're on Rob's side in this. I cannot believe it, but here we are.
They flipped the script.
It's the Matt Sharp special. Sophie drunk dials him and sort of sulks over the phone because
This was the shittiest fucking phone call, Michelle. This was such a shitty phone call from her. Please, just can you give us your thoughts as a? Now, I can't say receiving this call for you, but could you imagine making this phone call? Could you be so c-wordy about something?
Look, I probably did when I was her age. I probably did that constantly all the time. So I'm certainly in no position to criticize. Let's just remember how young she is. And it's so, what I think is so funny is that she says drunkenly to camera after calling him, she's like, no other bitch understands him the way I do. No, there's no other bitch that's gonna be so loyal as me, and we love each other so much, and she's just sounding more and more like her mom every minute.
Is that the same part where she's saying that no one understands his brain like she does?
Yes, and then he later says I can't figure her out and she can't figure me out and we don't need to be together. So it was the contrast there was pretty stunning.
I just want to point out to you also, because this is really interesting and we talked about this a little bit. I think this is where you and I were really switching over to Rob's side, because Rob's showing some emotional intelligence I didn't know he had. Um, because when Sophie says she loves him on that phone call and then they hang up, Rob tells Cameron, tells us that, Sophie's comments are nice, but they feel super manipulative and have made him extremely confused.
Yeah, he's a funny one with metaphors, isn't he? Because he says that she's pulling a cloak over his eyes and leading him around.
I think he meant wool, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand him.
In general or on this one?
I don't understand when he tries to put his feelings into words, but I will say I got kind of, I mean, you're saying he was, yeah. He's feeling like she's stringing him along, and he rightly points out that she will never end this relationship. Like, it has to be, if it is going to end, it has to be him taking decisive action, because she's never going to put herself in the position of being the initiator in that way.
And that
It's just
has,
not going to happen. And that in and of itself is both passive aggressive and manipulative.
and just to be clear, do you feel like at all is that because she wants to come to this country, or are you just talking about separately, just in their relationship, she's not going to be the one to end it?
I just, it's nothing to do with
Green cards or
green
visas.
cards or anything like that. I don't, I mean, she could throw a nickel and hit, 5 or 6 guys who would happily support that journey of hers. I just don't, I've said this from the beginning. I don't think these two fuck. I don't think there's anything between them. I think anything that was ever between them was a fantasy that started on OnlyFans or wherever they met. And it was at its most potent when they were just speaking to each other online. I don't think they really have anything in the real world.
Do you think Rob is, and now this is just do you think, well, let me ask it this way. Do you think Sophie's uncomfortable with her sexuality slash body?
No.
Okay.
And no.
And do you think Rob's uncomfortable with his sexuality or body?
Yes and yes.
Okay, so therefore, would you say that this is more of an issue coming from Rob's side than Sophie's side, or do you think it's just a confluence of garbage?
I think they're both unsure of who they are. I think he's old enough to know better and he doesn't, which is weird. I'd love to speak to someone, speak to a hetero man who does what Rob does, because I wonder what impact that has on how you perceive your sexuality. Like, something that I found really really interesting about them is that Rob is really into role playing and really into women who are physically strong or kind of like bodybuilder type women. And I wonder if he just feels like he can't, like he doesn't really have an authentic self sexually. For those of you who don't know, Rob creates pornographic or adult content that is aimed at men, or with a predominantly male audience.
He shows his bits and pieces for.
And his butthole primarily.
Sure,
Yeah.
that was in the bits and pieces, but if you want to make it more clear, yes, he.
Yes. Yeah. So there's interesting stuff happening psychologically, because I think fundamentally they don't have, and it's nothing to do with the online cheating. It's just to do with there's no intimacy that exists between them, because they can't be authentically themselves, because there's just so much that's buried so deep under questions that they will never ask themselves.
I don't know that. I mean, Rob's world might shatter if he actually dove into his own psyche on all of this. So, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think we're going to get those answers from them. But I will say, after seeing this, I can see one or both of them, if they don't stay together, which I don't think they will, from the looks of things, I could see them on the single life, or at least one of them.
Yeah, let's hope it's not Rob.
Oh, it will be. You know, it will be.
Let's talk about Loren and Alexei. So
I wanted to talk about Loren and Alexei, but now that we've gotten started here, I kind of like want to go do my own thing and pick up like a different job. And is that cool? I know that wasn't the point of us getting together here today, but I mean, what better use of time? I'm sorry. Well, I had a really big issue with Loren. I thought the way she handled Alexei and her what seemed to be her own needs or desires or wants kind of didn't really involve Alexei. I thought she was very, very frustrating here. And Michelle, I would love to get a woman's perspective on this before I dive into this more, because I have strong feelings, because Loren is from the part of the country that I am from, and I've known many Lorens. So literally and figuratively. So, Michelle, please, before I get too
Well,
deep.
you've known many Lorens carnally. You've had carnal knowledge of Lorens.
This is true.
Look, you know those buttons and bumper stickers and ephemera that say this meeting could have been an email? This argument or this exchange could have started with a blowjob and ended with her getting what she needed from him.
How does she not know that this deep into the relationship, or do you think that's a strategy she's never employed?
No, I think she probably did that during their courtship, and she just miscalculated this so much. Like, straight men are so straightforward when it comes to give and take. If you give, you should get back. And that's kind of what he's saying to her, like the fact that what I really had a problem with is that she talked about like, oh, I've done this and this and this for you, and I want you to be my cheerleader. And it's like, he is your fucking cheerleader. What have you wanted that he hasn't supported you through wholeheartedly? And now he just wants some of that back, and you don't want to give it to him. It's like, I've said before, I think that she lives in this, when she talks about like, oh, my friends or other women or other moms she lives in this sort of like Instagram bubble where everybody is enjoying motherhood all the time and everyone's enjoying their career all the time, and she wants to do everything, and she says, oh, I want to show how strong I am, and it's nothing to do with that. It's just like, she's a very anxious woman, as am I, and I know what that's like, sort of feeling like shit because I don't make homemade goat's cheese tartlets for lunch on a Saturday and take my family for a picnic and have a professional photographer there. I think she thinks that, and with a mother like that, no wonder she thinks that every moment of her life should just be bliss and fulfillment, and it isn't, and it's not because she doesn't have a job.
But let me ask you, when did she feel blissful and fulfilled with the fact that she had what she always wanted, which was all of these little children and a marriage to a guy she's in love with? When was she happy with that?
No, she's never been happy.
She's never been happy.
And that's why now she wants to do another plastic surgery thing.
But help me understand this, because you've gone around this here, but help me understand what is going on in her brain when she says she gets dressed up. She looks fantastic. You mentioned several times how great her ass looked in her dress when they go out. And it basically seemed like there was no preamble. There was no kind of like prologue even. It was sort of like, hey, I know we haven't had dinner in a long time and now we're out. So, now before our food even gets here, our drinks get here, I want to go back to work and I want you to be my cheerleader. What else? What did she expect his reaction to be? Was he going to say, fantastic, I can't wait to be a stay-at-home dad forever? I just don't understand what she expected.
That dinner should have been about reconnecting with each other. And it should have been about him saying to her, what you've been through was so hard. What we've been through was so hard. Even Loren said herself, this is the worst we've ever been as a couple.
Right.
Right. And instead of saying to her, like, Loren, you're the mother of my children, I'm so proud of you, I'm in awe of you, your beauty, your grace, your strength, and her saying to him, you really stepped it up and you showed up for me. You have taken over all the responsibilities and a full-time job and family crisis, all of these things. I don't know how you've carried that on your own, my king, my everything. the answer to my soul's eternal longing, right? And then they bone and everybody gets what they need.
But what we got instead was Alexei saying that he's been doing everything and now she's asking for more. He feels cornered, and her response is to throw his happiness about how she looks post surgery in his face. And his response is very quickly, I was happy with how you looked before.
Because he was. You know why? Because he actually loves her.
Whether she wants to accept that or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do you think happens next with them? And I don't mean like on the show. I mean, what happens in a moment like this in a relationship where you have the one side saying we're at the worst place we've ever been, and the other side's like, yeah, but kind of seemingly open to making things better, and then Lauren just makes it like a selfish sandwich, and it's all about her and what she can do, almost like she's living an independent life.
I don't think that their shared vision of the future is consistent. And I think there are going to be a lot of listeners and viewers out there who fairly or otherwise attack him for sort of saying, I don't want to be the cheerleader. I want what we originally talked about. And, people might call him a misogynist for that. I don't think that's what he's talking about. I think they decided together what their lives were going to look like, at least until the kids are self sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's worried about, I think he's worried about diminishing returns, to put it bluntly. Like, she gives those three kids a huge part of herself. She gives a part of herself to him. If she divides her attention and her energy further, that creates more stress, more anxiety. And I'm just talking about Loren specifically. She doesn't seem to have a concrete idea of what she actually wants to do. She just has a why she wants to do it, which I think is great in principle. But like, Loren, you might not be somebody who gets like, I don't know. I just want to shake her and say, can you at least try this original thing that you two agreed on as a couple? Can you just try, and can you just accept that not every minute of motherhood is unmitigated bliss?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Because it isn't.
That is what she's sort of angling for. And then I think you touched on this. I don't know if this was in this scene or if it was coming up next time on, but she switched gears to now talking about needing another surgery and more, I assume, recovery time based off of that, which really seemed like in direct contrast with I'm ready to be a working woman. Just kidding. I think I need some more work done first.
Work
And
on the inside
yes.
before. Do you know what? Like, I did something, and this is a waste of time for some people, but for other people, it's life changing. It was life changing for me. I saw a research psychologist who specializes, she's now like a careers counselor, but she's got that background. Like, she's got a doctorate, and she helps people kind of really figure out what they want, and she helps you identify the difference between like what you think you want to do and what you're actually suited for. And then so you do all this testing and things like that, and she interviews you and asks you all kind of questions, and then at the end you come out with like a list of 4 or 5 recommendations for what you should pursue and why it fits in with your values and things like that. And I think that would be good for Loren. She needs to like just see a therapist and figure out what she wants, because she has to stop looking to the outside world to solve her problems. I think the traditional domestic role of housekeeping and taking care of children, especially kids that age, is exhausting, draining. Um, it's not intellectually stimulating. It's not, that is a full-time job. And it's only the sinister mechanisms of the patriarchy that have convinced us that it isn't. So,
Well, you and friend of the show, my wife Diana, have said we're headed towards Gilead. So,
yep.
I guess this is just everyone getting primed.
All right.
Do you? Okay, we have two left. You just point. Tell me where you'd like to go first.
Let's do Gino and Jasmine.
Okay. Why not? Why not? Okay. I have a note here. So we open with the pageant kind of in full swing. The host of the pageant sounds like she's made of old cigarette ash from New York City in the theater district.
Yes,
Fair?
I agree. But in the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, that's old ash. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's ash from like cigars and
Yeah.
unfiltered Pall Malls and stuff like that. Okay. I'm glad we're in agreement on that.
Juicy. Yeah.
And now you're not familiar with the show Friends, but anyone who is familiar with the show Friends, this woman could have been Joey Tribbiani's talent agent. Very similar right there. So the pageant begins, and before we even really get into Jasmine, we have a contestant who is wearing a bald eagle costume to show her excitement for America. And Michelle, if you could help me understand this, because it looked like paper mache of some sort. And she was talking about how it weighed 60 pounds. About how many feet across and to the back would you say this eagle head and body is that this woman is wearing?
God, I don't know. I would say probably like 9 feet across and maybe like
12 feet behind her.
this. I can't comfortably discuss this because it's just such a nightmare for me. Like just thinking, I hated the whole image. I thought it was creepy. I don't really like mixing animals with burlesque or animals with any sexual kind of imagery. I didn't like the peacock outfit either.
Jasmine's peacock outfit.
Yeah.
Now, tell me something, because now while I am making fun of this giant bald eagle costume, it sort of made Jasmine look a little rinky dink when she came out.
It really did. And especially, like, I thought compared to the first two, Chrysandra in particular,
yes,
with her orange tan and all the help that she wants to give humanity in pursuing their goals or whatever word salad that was.
She was a rough one.
Oof, that tan in a can. It looks good on no one and is a shade that no one should wear.
You had a line about Jasmine before you get into her that I just want to throw out here, which and you can then take this away, but you said to me when we were watching this that Jasmine literally cannot move with grace.
I didn't say that. I said that she.
It might have been Diana, to be fair. One of you said that.
I said that she was graceless in her movement.
There you go.
She can't. I don't know if it's that she can't walk in heels, but it's just it's hard to watch. I'll put it that way. It's very clompy. I'm like that when I first put on a pair of heels. It takes me a while to kind of remember how to walk in them.
Okay, but if you were going to walk in a pageant, would you maybe wear them for a day or two and try to get used to your walk?
I'd wear them for weeks in the house, yes. I mean, I've done that for stage shows before. Like, you need to really... she just doesn't exude confidence. And for someone who's talking about the wings that her mother gave her to fly to her dreams, she gave a very good speech there. It just doesn't, the physicality isn't matching the words, and that made me really sad for her.
Did you feel that, and you just touched on her Q&A there, which she obviously said, but the question was, what inspired you to do this pageant? And she did, before she said about her mother, which was lovely, she did say redefining herself. Is Jasmine doing a beauty pageant redefining herself in your eyes? Because I'm not sure, when I think about it, it seems like a little bit of more of the same. I get she's maybe going out of her comfort zone to a degree, but she's also going towards her comfort zone. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that Jasmine is drawn like a moth to a flame uh when it comes to being evaluated and judged by her physical appearance and her and what she perceives as her womanhood. Her notion of womanhood and femininity is constrained to what she looks like and the feedback that she gets, and part of that feedback is related to how her husband responds to her and her body and things of that
I just
nature.
want to interject because you're 100% right there, but we have a really interesting thing here, which is almost like from a TV show or something or a movie where Gino's not in Jasmine's ear because if we recall, he was uninvited from watching the pageant, at least, behind backstage or anything. She can't see him. She's not making eye contact with him, but she comes up with a slew of like negative bullshit that Gino, quote unquote, says to her, but it's all from her own head.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this feels like a major point, a crux of their relationship is Jasmine getting angry at things Gino hasn't actually said.
I don't think that's uncommon. An uncommon dynamic to have. I think that anyone can get in their head like that. We're all guilty of that to an extent. I definitely have conversations in my head or sometimes bad dreams where I wake up and I'm mad at whoever, whatever male is closest to me at that time, you know? What I think is definitely something that could and probably will end their relationship at some point is that she drags him into that to the point where when he said she becomes when she behaves in a certain way, and I'm paraphrasing, she becomes uglier to me by the day.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you don't think he's just talking about her behavior, that you think the other things that she does in an effort to make herself more attractive or more appealing to him
Yeah, we were
might,
talking about
yeah.
this because, and again, to each their own. I'm just talking about this relationship. Gino does not seem very into plastic surgery and those things. He seems to support Jasmine in her quest to make herself feel comfortable and beautiful in her own eyes. But I feel like as this continued sort of like de-evolution of their relationship where it just always winds up with Gino kind of getting yelled at. He tells her again because she brings up sex again and how they haven't had sex in months, and that's when Gino says, and I don't remember if I don't think it was to her. I think it was to camera saying that she
Yeah.
becomes uglier to him. I didn't take that as she's ugly or he's unattracted to her. He's unattracted to her personality and these continued extra measures that she goes to make herself beautiful. I was telling you that I think Gino, deep down, whether he's accessing this or not, know cognitively or consciously, he knows it's not really for him. She's not making herself beautiful for him. It's all about her to a degree. And this is from Gino's perspective and
Right.
from me looking at it. And I think that's like it's so disconnected, and Gino's in his head, and as a guy myself who can get in my head, I understand where Gino's at a little bit with maybe being overwhelmed, and then also everything. Do they ever just have sex? Like because it seems like everything is like some sort of acrobatic decathlon in terms of sex, and not just like ever calm. And I feel like she'd get a lot further with Gino in terms of what she wants sexually if she would meet him like halfway in terms of his own comfortability.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's very sad that sex is for her primarily driven by the need for approval and validation. And I don't even, and I wonder whether she actually enjoys it or whether it's an itch that needs scratching. Jasmine also, she's not sex positive. She attaches so much shame to it, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but as the resident um straight man on this show at this time, I can't imagine that if I shamed you for your habits, whether it's watching porn, which is completely normal, or whatever you need to do to get off and feel good, or shamed you about not having sex with me enough, or if I took any of those lines with you, I can't imagine that the result would be rock hard dick ready to go.
No, I'd probably I'd probably be at like a Starbucks nearby or something, sort of like clinging to a venti iced coffee, being like, I don't know when I can go back. I don't know. I feel bad about myself now. Jasmine has the ability, and I'm not saying that I would feel this way, but maybe I would, you know. Jasmine's approach with Gino is inverting his penis into his body, which is the exact opposite of what Jasmine says she wants. But I do think that this idea of like Jasmine's kink might just be making Gino feel like shit, you know, because she feels not great about herself, and it feels like we're spreading that love a little bit too thick all over the
Well,
place.
it isn't love. It's more,
Well, it was sarcasm. No one can
yeah,
see my
yeah.
my air quotes here. Air
It's,
quotes on that one, folks.
um,
Do you have anything else to say about these two?
no, I do not.
Because we do have sort of a much, let's say, I don't want to say better story, but we have some more growth, at least in our last couple of the week, which is going to be Ashley and Manuel up in
This
upstate New York.
this scene felt more genuine and authentic than any other time that we've ever seen them. It made me kind of angry that we got an entire season of just fucking and fighting and fucking and fighting. And now that the defenses have come down, we see what we've been waiting for and wanting to be there since forever, which is just, I love this. This is such a beautiful form of conflict resolution and connection, and I bought this completely.
And we have, just to set the scene a little bit, we have Manuel walking into the bedroom where Ashley's reading a book, and it becomes clear that he slept on the couch last night. He's asking her if she's still angry. Obviously, nothing has been resolved. Um, but and we get into the conversation about Manuel speaking to his ex girlfriend, who's the mother of his children, and we get Ashley just first off saying she doesn't have a problem with him speaking to the mother of his children, and if he had just said he speaks to the mother of his children from time to time, she's fine with that. It was the secrecy and the lying, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when they are both able to feel safe around each other
Hmm.
and safe in expressing their feelings, which, I mean, this is certainly the first time we've seen that on camera. I don't even think that they were at this level when they got married.
Right. I
Um,
agree.
but yes, of course, any kind of that, you can just tell, or I can tell, even my autistic ass can tell when somebody is withholding. And Diana and I were agreeing watching this that this is what Manuel has shown is classic male depression. It's going into anger, defensiveness, even cruelty sometimes, or assigning blame to others, mocking others. These are all anger, and and everything that follows. These are all safer places to be than to be sad. And what he reveals in a really beautiful way is that he feels that he's letting his family down. He's ashamed that he can't help them. He's afraid that he'll never be able to go back. And he is also afraid of burdening Ashley with his sadness.
And that was like one of the most painful parts for me watching
Oh,
this.
that
Now,
just broke my heart.
but at the same time, like this is man, we're watching in real time Manuel like get in touch with himself in a
Mm-hmm.
way that could, if this is something to be saved, could save this relationship. Because what he shares when he's talking about who he's afraid to be vulnerable, like you said, and share this sort of these down parts of his life with her, but she's saying in a very loving way, like, I want your vulnerability. Like, I need
Mm-hmm.
that so we can feel together. Like, don't look at it as you're bringing your sadness or your garbage into this. Like, that's your life and who you are. And I love you and I'm here for you. And it just felt like this was something. And look, relationships all go up and down, but like, this was the most real it feels like he was ever with her,
Mm-hmm.
period, on camera, off camera. And the love, if I may say, that they seem to be sharing in this moment of vulnerability is something it made me feel like their relationship was actually had a lot more to it than
Yeah,
maybe we've seen so
totally.
far.
Yep. And it was everybody's out of their heads and into their hearts.
Hmm.
And that's how you show up for someone.
Well, we also even watch like even the seeming issues that are hanging in the air, they start falling quickly. Like, because once Manuel opens up the floodgates of being honest and sharing his emotions, we also find out he does answer some like concrete things like,
Yep.
hey, what happened to that $1,000 that I'm positive because your cousin said you went to the bank and you did all of this? And he's like, I put the money in a savings account. It's all there. I was just saving it for the future because I don't have money to be saving right now.
Right.
So, and Ashley was fine with it. It was just like, why didn't you just say so, man? Like, what are you doing?
I wish them the best. I really do. And I don't mean that in the
Sean
Sean
Robinson.
Robinson kind of way. I really do. And it was I think that's a beautiful way to end this episode. We do a lot of shop talk when it comes to relationships, and no one's relationships are perfect. Okay. And a lot of times what I'm picking up on or criticizing in other people is stuff that I've already done myself. And that's why you listen. You also listen because Jack is disgusting.
Says the most disgusting person I've ever heard speak.
Wow. My name is Michelle, and I am here for open, authentic, honest, vulnerable communication.
I'm Jack, and I'd like you all to know that I can be as vulnerable as possible, but when needed, I can always access my dog side.
So that's HEA for the week.
We
We
love
love you.
you.
That's
That's it.
it.
Bye.